right, everyone. Today, I'm super excited. We're going to be having Brandon, the Mad Fientist, back on the show and looking at his path to financial independence and his post-financial independence journey through the lens of what would I have done differently with the benefit of hindsight. I think his conclusions will surprise you and be enlightening for others. And very excited to hop right into that. Welcome to the Ultimate Crowdsourced Personal Finance Show. This is Choose FI. All right, guys, really excited to dive into this content. Brandon was one of our very early guests on the show. It was episode 17. He is a fixture, a staple in the financial independence community, really bringing the ideas that this community was talking about to the podcast platform first. I would say he has the financial independence podcast, and was a real him being able to highlight these stories. And I think he would even say at the time that he started, there were people that were doing stuff that was really, it was blowing his mind, and he just wanted an excuse to have conversations with him. And I think that's kind of a mantra that Brad and I have followed as well. How can we just embed ourselves in this community and have more of these conversations? And it's been an incredibly rewarding journey. To help me with this conversation, I have my co-host Brad here with me today. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, Jonathan, I am doing quite well. Yeah, it's hard to be having a bad day here when you're talking to Brandon the Mad Fientist, right? It's hard to believe it's been 4 years since we've had him on the show, and I'm just so curious to catch up with him, see what's been going on in his life. And last time we talked to him, it was about just that we just reached FI, right? He just got there, and he talked about a lot of the psychological hurdles that he had to overcome, scarcity, deprivation. And I'm fascinated to see how that's transitioned as he's moved into this next phase of his life. So, with that, Brandon, welcome back to Choose FI.
Thanks very much for having me again. And yeah, huge congrats to you guys over the last 4 years. You guys have just exploded, and it's been super fun to watch. And it's a privilege to be back on again 4 years later.
Well, thank you for that. But it is interesting to realize that 4 years ago we were having this conversation, and 4 years ago, is that true? 4 years ago, you identified publicly that you had reached financial independence. And it's kind of curious because I mean, sometimes weeks or days and days or years, and time flies. But now you're kind of looking at that inflection point with the benefit of hindsight. Um, Give us a little bit of an update on and what's going on in your world.
Yeah, so it's been a crazy few years. Obviously, 2020 was crazy for everybody, but even the years before that were pretty enlightening. Just not exactly what I expected, but thankfully I figured stuff out over years 2 and 3, and then the last couple have been really, really fulfilling. Which, I'm sure we're going to talk about this a little bit, but my dream as a kid was just to write music and put it out into the world. And like I like some weird kind of music, so like the bands that I idolize, I would turn up to one of their concerts and it'd only be like 20 or 30 people in the whole club. So like I never had like amazingly high ambitions to be a pop star or anything, which if you listen to the music, you'll realize that would never happen. It's not very mainstream commercial, but it was always my goal to just have an album that I've written myself that I can look back on in 20 years and be like, whoa, I did actually contribute to this medium that I love so much. Because as you guys both know, being creators of all this amazing Choose FI content, it's harder to be a creator than a consumer, but it's a lot more rewarding. So music's always been a huge thing for me growing up. And I was like, I'm just a consumer and I want to be a producer. So that was really the whole point of getting to FI, was because I always thought that my job was the one thing that was holding me back. And then I reached FI, and then I had all this free time and realized actually it wasn't my job, because I had loads of free time when I was working. I did a lot of TV watching and traveling and other things. And I could have been making progress on this music project, but it was only after that I got rid of all my scapegoats of having to go into the job, 9 to 5 every day and all that sort of stuff, that I realized, oh, this is actually a problem with me. Psychologically, I have this block. Like, I'm a math and science guy, and I don't think I can do this. And the fact that I want to do it so badly means that I'm too scared to try, because if I try and fail, then the dream is gone. And that is pretty much the first 2 years of post-FI life, was trying to come to grips with that and try to get over that.
Actually, even in the setup, as we were discussing, we included a small snippet of that at the front of the episode. there was a sentence that you stated that really stuck with me in that what you've been focusing on through this process of creating this album is mastering this relationship between time, money, and happiness. And it is an equation. You're a math and science guy, and I could see you needing and feeling the need to translate these subjective actions, these psychological actions to some form of an equation. And while I could obviously see you going to a very extreme version of it, I think there is a universal truth here that you can have anything but not everything. And I would love for you to kind of unpack this equation and how you're finding that balance and what that pendulum has looked like for you. And then, any advice that you would pull out of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's only been recently where I thought of that equation, because when I was pursuing financial independence, I was just tunnel vision. Like, that was the only thing that mattered. Like, all my time was going to figure out ways to earn more money so I could hit FI quicker. My happiness was taking a tank because we were just cutting back on everything. Like, I didn't want to spend money on a single thing, and every expenditure was just like this disaster. And I didn't realize, but my wife and my happiness was just decreasing as that increased. So during the pursuit of FI, I was just tunnel vision. And it's only over the last year or so that I've started making progress on this music project that I realized I definitely did it all wrong. The whole point, I think, is to master the relationship between money, time, and happiness. And FI is a great goal, and I just released a post about goals and mastery versus goals, and how mastery is probably a way better thing to focus on pre-FI and post-FI, but especially post-FI, because you want something where you can just enjoy it for many years and get better at it. And there's lots of reasons why goals aren't great
Well,
for
let's
stuff
just
like
spend
that.
some time there. So let's talk about mastery versus goals, little definitions of terms and what the difference is for individuals that are trying to, maybe focus on this a little bit more. I'm a goal setter, so
Sure,
this
yeah.
is applicable for me.
Yeah, I have been a goal setter, as well. So it's I'll send you a link to a James Clear article, which I know he's a previous podcast guest on you guys' show, and he has a great article about the downsides of goals. But some of the ones that I've come across myself, goals delay your happiness because you're always looking to the future, so you're not really enjoying the present or the journey. You're like, I'm going to run this marathon, and that's all I can think of, and I have to do these things, and everything feels like a task. And you just think you're going to be happy when you hit that goal, just like I was when I thought, FI, I'm going to be happy. Like, yeah, I can tell I'm not happy now, and I didn't know that we were actually getting unhappier in the process, but we were. And I was like, it doesn't matter, because once I hit FI, I'll be happy and be just, unicorns, rainbows, all the amazing things. This life will be just incredible. And the problem is, one, that rarely is the case. I'm sure people who have been in school realize, like, you're studying for the week before exams, and you're like, as soon as I take this exam, I'm going to feel amazing. It's just going to be like a whole new world. This is going to be the best thing ever. And then you take the exam, and then you're just like, oh, I'm just tired, and all that elation wasn't there. So it was the same thing for FI with me. It was just a slightly bigger number on a computer screen, which had no impact in my life really, other than, it gave me some more confidence to step away from my job and things like that. But you're delaying happiness for a certain thing. Another thing is, it sort of makes the whole process more intimidating, because you say you're setting out to run a marathon, and 26.2 miles sounds like a lot, especially when you're huffing and puffing after 1 mile. So that could be disheartening, and maybe disheartening enough that you would then quit running altogether, which is actually something that my friend did, which is another downside of accomplishing goals. I have a picture in the post that I just published today that it's her throwing her running shoes into a garbage can in New York City, probably 20 minutes after finishing the New York Marathon. And she's like, that's it, I'm never running again. That was awful. That the whole journey was awful. So, maybe that goal wasn't great for her, just because maybe it would have just been better to be like, I'm just going to run until I stop enjoying it, and then run the next day until I stop enjoying it, and things like that. So there are quite a few downsides to goals, but especially after you achieve financial independence, because you have all the time in the world, and motivating yourself to do something is hard when you don't have any sort of external motivation to do it. So then to reach the end of this journey and then have to start a whole new goal, it just seems to be very tiring. And when I really realized how different these two things are, it was 2018. And I had, or maybe 2017, somewhere around there, I had there were two things I wanted to do. I wanted to write more songs, get better at songwriting, and I wanted to get fit. And at the same time, I started both of those things. But for the songwriting, I went to the Chautauqua it must have been Ecuador at that time. And I did this presentation and I declared on March 31st, 2017 or 2018, whatever it was, I would have written a song and finished it and shared it with my brother, who I was comfortable sharing stuff with, even if it wasn't good. And then also around the same time, I started wanting to get fit because I realized after finishing my job, I was like, I'm not healthy. I'm sitting all day and I want to get healthier. So I started working with a personal trainer. And I remember it's our friend Doug that you guys may know. And he kept asking me, he's like, so what do you want to bench? And how much muscle mass do you want to put on? And all these things. And I just kept answering, I don't care. Like, I just want to keep doing this forever. And I just want to get healthy and stay healthy. So that's sort of like a mastery mindset, because it's just, I think you can sum up mastery just by saying like, am I better today than I was yesterday? And if you just keep answering yes to that question, that's you pursuing mastery. So those are two very different approaches. And the way it turned out was the gym thing, I continued all the way up until the pandemic closed all the gyms. So that was 3 or 4 years of just consistently going. And I probably exceeded any sort of weight targets I would have set at the beginning anyway, but I just didn't care. Whereas the songwriting thing, I finished a song on the 31st of March, whatever, 2017. It was awful. The whole process was awful. The song sucked because I was just rushing to finish it just to meet my goal. And then when I finished it, I did no other songwriting for the rest of 2017, 2018. And it wasn't until the end of 2019 that I finally plucked up the courage to start again. And that really highlighted the difference between the two and how impactful it could be to long-term progress.
Yeah, it's interesting how that concept of mastery ties in so closely to, as James Clear talks about, the systems versus goals, right? And setting up these systems. And also a lot of these themes that we talk about on the podcast, identity, right? I'm the type of person that, as opposed to I just have this one random goal. And, if you had set a goal, I need to bench 300 and then you hit it. Well, what then, right? Okay. Do you go back and sit on the couch, or are you the type of person that goes to the gym 5 times a week or whatever it is, whatever that concept you have of yourself. And I think this is really critical, right? Because we're talking about the importance of this psychological stuff, but this really ties directly into FI. Like you said, it's not, oh, I get to FI and then it's all unicorns and rainbows, right? It's, as you said, it was just another day. It was just another digit on the screen. And I think it's really important that we highlight that, but also keeping in mind that clearly the benefits of FI and the benefits of having those digits on the screen are incredibly important too, right? So like there's this balancing act. And I'd love to hear you talk about like your own evolution with the financial aspect of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I couldn't agree more with what you said. The habits is key. Yeah, I'm sure go back and listen to your interview with James Clear. Like in his book, Atomic Habits was probably one of the best I've read on the topic. And doing something consistently does change your identity. That was huge for me because I never felt like I was a musician. But then after, a few months of doing it 25 hours a week, I was like, well, I am, because that's all I do. So that's incredibly important. But to go back to your question about the finances. So like I said, if you're thinking about just mastering the relationship between money, time, and happiness. So I was completely skewed in the wrong way towards money, and I sacrificed time and happiness to get more money. And even after hitting my FI target and then exceeding it, and then having income come in that I didn't expect, even considering all that, I'm still in that mindset. And I had Ramit Sethi on my show to talk to him about like, how do I get out of that? Because I feel like I'm still my triangle is still skewed towards the money aspect. So it's trying to think of ways to use that money to either get more time or to increase our happiness. And that's been a that's been something I've been going over for the last 4 years. And I'm, like I said earlier, I think it's something that I'm going to continue to have to go over because one, we're terrible at knowing what makes us happy and what we actually want out of life. At least I am, and that's what I found. And two, I'm sure we change as we get older because I know the stuff that was important to me right after I left my job, like traveling and seeing the world and exploring, is no longer as important to me now. So I think it's going to be always something that I keep in mind and have to keep adjusting. But yeah, the main focus over the last few years is like, okay, what is important to me and how can I use the money to get that? So to give you like a concrete example, I wrote these 8 songs and I couldn't believe it because that's been a lifelong dream of mine to do that. And then it was like, okay, I have these songs. I want them to sound as great as they possibly can. So I hired a Grammy Award winning mixing engineer to help me mix my own album so that one, I learn at a quicker pace than I would have if I was just watching YouTube videos or something. But also, it helps me make this final product better. And then I paid someone else to master it who has mastered amazing albums from people like M83 and Mad Villain and just like big artists that I really have enjoyed listening to over the years. And I paid him to master it. So pre-fi Brandon would have never in a million years even thought about those things. But post-fi Brandon, who's, thought about these things over the last few years is like, okay, these are the things that are important to me. We still have a crappy car, like it costs $3,000. I think I've spent more on the album than I have spent on buying the car. But that's makes me so much happier. Like, I don't care. I love our car. So it's, yeah, that's been sort of the focus over the last few years is trying to figure out how to utilize the money still efficiently. Like I can't waste money. Like I don't think I'll ever change. No matter if I have $1 trillion, I still won't waste money or be inefficient with it. But it's sort of thinking about how to maximize that triangle, really, the money, happiness, and time, and use some of that money to increase the happiness.
Well, this is interesting. I want to move us a little bit off of goals versus mastery and actually go back to this equation for a second because, you're an odd duck. And I don't mean that as a bad thing. We as a community are odd ducks. We are not normal people. We are weird. We actually pay attention and we consider the money that have earned and will earn in the future as a version of our life energy. You're trading your life energy for income. And so how much time you choose to commit to that process is a really big part of that equation. So it doesn't totally surprise me that you had to reel it back in. You put a little too much emphasis, maybe a lot, way too much emphasis on just the money to the sole exclusion of your time and your happiness. Other people were on the complete other end of that spectrum. Now, they're still struggling with happiness, but they are spending all of their money. There's no focus on saving it. And they don't really see why they should be switching up this equation. And actually, maybe that they feel like they are getting a version of happiness, but they don't feel any real need to save money. And I think it's that hedonic treadmill. And I'm trying to figure out what this triangle would look like, even as I say this out loud. But this character is YOLO. You only live once. Spend every dollar you have now because there is no tomorrow. And I think it's important for us because that is where probably the predominant consumption culture finds themselves. It is important to talk about the advantages of finding this balance, even if you're not going to be as hardcore as Brandon the Mad Fientist, the advantages of finding this path to financial independence and getting on this path as quickly as possible, how that really did empower you to be able to become a creator rather than just a consumer. So, I mean, can we balance this conversation out? And you're trying to slow your earlier Brandon down a little bit, but a lot of other people need to have that wake up call.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And just thinking about how these three things interact is very valuable. And it's something that, most of society doesn't do. And that's why there's lots of just unconscious spending that doesn't really bring happiness. Yeah, it may bring some status that maybe gives you a tiny boost initially, but then that fades away. And then you're just left with a big car bill or something. So absolutely. And I think getting onto this path, one, not only, helps you sort the money equation out a bit more and makes you more likely to be able to achieve something like financial independence sooner, but it gets you thinking about it and, listening to your guys' show and constantly having that at the forefront of your mind means that you're not just blowing money and you're doing things to see what actually improves your life. And that's the thing, like, even though these three nodes on this triangle, you still have to inspect what's going on in those nodes as well, because happiness, I could go out and blow a grand on cocaine and strippers or something, and that would probably be an amazing night. But then, long term life, that's terrible, because my wife wouldn't be too happy with that, and my body wouldn't be too happy with that. And it's like sort of figuring out like happiness versus fulfillment, and long term happiness versus momentary happiness and things like that. And then also time, like, figuring out what types of things you like to do with your time. And it's something I always go back to on my site, is just to experiment, because like I said before, we're terrible at knowing those things. So you always have to be experimenting with your spending, with the activities you're doing, whether some spending feels good up front, but then is meaningless a week later. Yeah, I think it's just on everyone to do those experiments and figure it out for themselves, because we're all different. But the main point is that I think this is beneficial for any income spectrum, anywhere where you're on the net worth spectrum as well. It's like being conscious of this stuff is helpful no matter what your goals and where you are currently.
Yeah, Brandon, you're really talking about value-based spending and intentionality, right? About just experimenting and figuring out like what actually makes sense for your life. To your point, spending money on cars, that means nothing to you, right? That means absolutely nothing to me either. I think, unfortunately, my Golden Boy car died recently, but I mean, that thing was worth about $800, and that's fine, right? It got me from point A to point B. But yet, there are things that I spend money on, right? There are things that I spend money on just based on value. There are things that I spend money on to save time. And like you said, you actually mentioned that a couple of minutes ago, right? You said use money to get more time or to increase happiness. And because I think a lot of people do get into that deprivation mindset, like I'm curious if you could tell like Brandon circa 7 years ago, or someone listening to this podcast right now who maybe is in that deprivation mindset, like what do you spend money on? Like, I think this could be illustrative of positive spending, and telling people like it's okay to spend money sometimes, right? As long as you do it from a place of value. What do you spend money on to save time that Brandon circa 7 years ago would be probably aghast at?
That's a great question, and it's really not as much as you would think. So I would probably say we spend less now than we did 7 years ago. So for me, it's the small things. Like, I used to freak out. Like, this is a terrible story, because it just highlights how crazy I must have been at this time of my life. Because we went out to lunch with friends, and the waiter came over and asked my friend Joanna if she wanted to upgrade to sweet potato fries, and she said yeah. And then she looked at me and she said, "I'm sorry." And I was like, one, I want you to be happy as possible. So like, don't think I'm judging you for upgrading the $1 or $2 surcharge to get sweet potato fries. So one, I want you to be happy and do whatever makes you happy. If sweet potato fries make you happy, go for it. And yeah, two, even if I was judging you, you don't have to apologize to me in any way for doing whatever you want.
And then three, you realized you were judging her. You're like, damn it, I need to fix that.
Probably was back then. Yeah. So it just shows how crazy I was back then. But it's things like that that just really don't move the needle. So like, this is what I suggest to people, because if you are in that deprivation zone, the thing that really helped me was I ended up working a year, maybe even a year and a half, somewhere between 1 and 2 years longer at my job than I had planned. Because when I said I'd quit, they said, "Hey, how about?" I said I'm quitting and I'm moving to Scotland, and they're like, "Wait, just work from Scotland." And I was like, "Oh, that sounds fun. That sounds way better than coming into the office every day. I'll just keep doing what I do, which I like, but I don't have meetings and office politics and commuting and all that sort of stuff." So, and I ended up working a year or two longer, and since I had a salary coming in that I didn't expect, I was like, all right, I'm just going to relax this year. If my wife wants to go out to dinner, we're just going to go out. I'm not going to pick the cheapest thing on the menu just because it's the cheapest. I'm just going to order what I want. if we want to go out for coffee, go out to movies, whatever, we're just going to do it all. We're going to travel more, any trips, travel once a month. I think we ended up traveling for that year. Since we live in Scotland, it's easy to get to Europe, and it's like, all right, let's go to Italy for a weekend or whatever. And I tally up all my expenses every month. So at the end of that year, it was maybe, I don't know, like $2,000 or $3,000 more than we normally spend. And I was like, all of that mental energy that goes to like stressing out about all these minute detail decisions, and I felt like I could spend on everything and everything I wanted, because like I wasn't going out and buying a new BMW or anything. I was just getting a coffee when I felt like a coffee, and it felt like the most extravagant, amazing life. And yeah, like I said, it was only a couple grand more for that year. So that was a huge lesson. So if you're in that deprivation zone like I was, I would just suggest testing your limits. Try, obviously, if you're in the deprivation zone, you're testing the lower limits of your spending. I would work a bit longer and test that upper limit, because one, you'll hopefully find the sweet spot like I have, which I feel like I'm in the sweet spot of that. I know what spending makes me happiest, and I know what's excess, but it'll also make you not feel like you're depriving yourself of stuff you see other people doing as well. Because, I've tried the upper limits. I realize I don't want to be traveling every month because it's just tiresome and I don't enjoy it as much. I know I don't want to eat out 3 days a week like some of my friends do, which before I would have been like, oh, I'm so jealous. They get to go out to cool restaurants obviously pre-COVID, but they get to go out to cool restaurants 3 times a week. And here I am just eating rice and beans at home every day. But now it's like I don't feel any of that jealousy, because it's like I tried that and I didn't feel healthy, and it just made it less special since we were doing it all the time. So I think that's a great way to counteract that deprivation.
And I just want to point out for our audience that while you're talking about these one-off recurrent expenses, you're talking about your deprivation mindset. As I view that through my own lens of experience, I know for a fact that you limited your large structural recurring expenses. Like these were the one-off decisions that you made here and there, and you gave yourself some latitude there. But I think one of the underpinnings here, because you had taken care of these structural expenses that so many people fall prey to, the oversized home with the oversized mortgage, the multiple car payments, and all of the million variations of recurring structural expenses that people tie themselves to, you are talking about making day-to-day one-off purchases that frankly in aggregate barely move the needle. I think it's probably worth pointing out the difference between those two different paths.
No, absolutely. That's exactly it. It's when you get those big things, which I know there's some great rating on this topic, is like if you get those big things, then the little things really don't matter. If you're not, spending half your income on your mortgage, and then you have another 20% going to a car loan, and these things really do matter. So I think that's huge to point out.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say, Brennan, it's super important that you said, I tried that, right? I experimented at this. I tried to see what that upper limit was. And for you and your wife, Jill, it was $2,000 or $3,000, right? And that is just, it's so important that people really do experiment with this and figure out what works. Like you said, travel and restaurants, you tried those things and you realize they weren't that great for you long term. Other people might try those and say, I want to do this for the rest of my life. I want to go out to dinner 5 times a week. That's perfectly fine if you can fit that into the balance of your life and the financial way you run your life, obviously, right? And it's so much easier when you have your structural expenses down. And I think just kind of last point here is we talk about time. And I think most people don't value their time nearly as much as they should, because a lot of things we do, like I'm thinking even of my wife, Laura. She loves to go to different grocery stores and have exact prices down. She knows exactly what everything costs. And I mean, it would get to the point where she was going to 5 or 6 stores a week. I'm like, this is madness. It's 30 minutes minimum each time. And you're talking about saving pennies or dollars in aggregate. And when you add that up over 5 or 6 extra store visits a week times 52 weeks a year times decades, think about how much time is wasted for what? I mean, it's peanuts. And the stress that she was undergoing because she didn't have free time. So I say this all to just kind of paint a picture of, it's really important to be intentional about all these different aspects of your life.
And Brad, I think that's kind of like, as you guys are kind of hitting at it from different ways. When we talk about these building blocks of financial independence, we talk about these big structural expenses. There are some that are, non-negotiable for people in terms of when you look at the common patterns that people have worked through to reach financial independence far ahead of the pack or their peers. They have optimized their taxes. They take advantage of tax advantage vehicles. There's no reason to leave that on the table. That's why all of us here are huge fans of that strategy. They have focused on the income side of the equation. They have focused on their mortgage, making sure their mortgage is in line, their structural recurring expenses are aligned, they're not being weighed down by massive credit card debt. They've either paid that off or they've, removed that. Their car payments are not taking up a disproportionate size of their monthly expenses, so their transportation costs are minimal. And then as you start working your way through it, a lot of people pay attention to their grocery budget, their food. And then, you're talking about the far end of that where you're optimizing for pennies. But when you optimize at the macro level, like your cost per serving, if someone's going out to dinner, to your point, that person that's going out to dinner every single night, that might be okay. The other half of that hedonic treadmill is, though, you're so devastated and destroyed by the toxic job that you're in that every single night you have to go out to eat. You don't even enjoy it, but it's this is what I give myself because I deserve it mentality. $25 to $50 per person per meal, every night of the week. That's just that end. I mean, the food and dining and entertainment budget can end up being a bloated multi-thousand-dollar a month expense. And Brandon, if you were to look at you and what you and your wife have spent on groceries on a monthly basis over the last 5 years, I would suspect that even in your hedonic days, that 1 year, it's a disproportionately low just flat dollar amount compared to the average, the average grocery bill that most people that aren't paying attention find themselves paying. I'd love your thoughts on that.
No, absolutely. That's exactly right. That's something I've slowly realized. Like, I think I'm pretty normal, and then I realize how crazy everybody else is, and I'm like, oh, actually, maybe I don't know who's crazy, but we're definitely far apart. So yeah, so me thinking like I'm going out and just going wild is probably less than the normal Americans normal week. But again, that all comes back to just thinking about these things all the time. And like I've gone to really nice restaurants and they're amazing, but I've also realized over the years that the reason they're amazing is because they contrast with a normal restaurant. And if you're just going out to these amazing ones all the time, then it's going to lose a lot of that additional benefit. And yeah, again, that's something that each person has to figure out for themselves what's important and try to optimize that sweet spot because you don't want to be on either side of it, but it's hard to nail down that sweet spot without trying and testing the limits every now and then.
And I love the anchor concept, which I'll hand back to Brad here. But I mean, Brad, you and your family have an anchor that you have used, and regardless of how strictly you adhere to it on a meal by meal basis, I know it's always present with you as kind of a guiding light for what you spend on food. I'd love for you just to bring that into this conversation for a second.
Yeah, it's basically $2 per person per meal is what we look at for kind of our dinner spending. And that's not a hard and fast rule by any means, but it's just applying some intentionality to planning. And I think what we're talking about here, Brandon, just in general, is this polarity that exists, right? Like we talked about, you can be over optimized, like Laura was, maybe of going to every store and trying to save every penny, versus how Jonathan described the person who just doesn't care and they're spending $20, $30 per person per meal all the time. We're talking about the polarity of how you can approach your finances, right? Like you reach that point of deprivation, whereas that's contrasted with someone who just doesn't care. They spend all their money, they go into credit card debt. So, I mean, clearly in this regard, and I hate to apply like value or judgment to either side, but I mean, I think it's better to try to optimize and then get to that point and realize, oh, this is a little bit too much, as opposed to just going through life unaware, right? So that examined life is really critical, but I think we both have seen that you can just take it a little bit too far, and there's excess in that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And to go back to the YOLO thing, like just as you were speaking there, I think we need like a new acronym, YOLO. So yeah, you only live once, but it could be for a long time. So it's like trying to balance between those. And I can't come up with the acronym as we speak because it doesn't. I don't think it'll roll off your tongue. But yeah, that's sort of the balance you're trying to get.
Oh, that's fantastic.
You know, there's something here in that, like, it's really hard to dig yourself out of a hole. A lot of us have had to do it. I had to do it. I had to unwind 6 figures of student loan debt. So not to say it's not possible, but it's really hard to dig yourself out of the hole. So the longer you go through life unaware, yes, have the wake up call. But we all recognize best time to start 10 years ago, second best time today. Yes, get started. But having said that, you know, to Brad, to your point, unwinding because you optimize a little too much is a little bit easier. It's kind of a privileged position to be in. And I wanted to talk about that in the context of putting on your armor. And Brandon, I know you'll be the first to admit that you are an introverted dude. You carry a lot of that around with you, and it maybe keeps you from embracing some of the things that would involve you putting yourself out there, you know, going as far as you would like. So let's just talk about this. But people need to realize you're an introverted guy. You carry that psychological baggage with you to some very degree. It's part of your identity, it's part of your core narrative. But we're saying to people, and we'll publicly say it at the end, you are releasing your first album. This is, I don't think people need to understand what this represents. For you to put your stamp on this and say, this is me. I created this. I put my entire being, everything that I am into this. I'm proud of this. And regardless of the outcome, regardless of what other people think of it, I want you to have the chance to experience it, and I'm going to sell it. I'm going to sell it. I'm charging a nominal $5 charge, and I want to give people the opportunity to listen to this. I just want to, like, there's something there that I wonder what it is about you right now that's allowing you to have the confidence to do this, which it's it puts you in a very vulnerable place. And when you combine that with the introvert narrative that you have about yourself, how do we get here to this point right now? What's the mindset that allows you to be confident, you know, going into this product launch?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. This is terrifying, especially with the style of music I make, which is just like, yeah, some quite weird synthesizer based, dissonant sometimes, indie rock sometimes. Yeah, it's terrifying, but it's one of these things that never has died. And I'm sure you guys have had some of these, either an idea that just doesn't die, no matter how much you want it to, it just doesn't die. And you just realize that you have to do it. And so there's something that I've been saying to myself over the last 2 years, and I'll tell you this story for where this came up. My brother was living with us in Edinburgh, and this was when I was in the depths of self-loathing with my music because I wasn't making progress, because I wasn't putting in the time, to be honest, but just the self-doubt was just crippling. And I was still telling myself the old identity stuff where, you know, I'm a math and science guy. I can't write music. Even though I want to, I can't do it. So it was during this period, and I was like, all right, well, what is the point of this? One, it's to become a creator in this space rather than just a consumer. But the second thing was the whole point was to have fun playing live music with my brother, which he actually studied music. He's an incredible drummer, and he's toured the country with big bands and things like that. And I was like, the point is to have fun playing music, hopefully with my brother. And since he was there, I was like, well, there's nothing stopping us. Like, we could go into the park right now and take a few synthesizers and we could play a show. So anyway, so this was this was the start of this ridiculous idea. So I put together, I programmed this whole set list into my music software. I got a battery powered synthesizer. Everything else was powered off of my laptop. I ordered a boombox that I could then plug an auxiliary audio cable into that had lights on it. And we decided to go and become the first Synth Pop Buskers in Edinburgh.
I'm confident that you were.
Like, I don't know if you've noticed that, but I realized as I was saying this, I kept hiding behind my microphone. Like, just the thought of it is starting to make me get into a cold sweat. But yeah, I just noticed I was slowly hiding behind my microphone as I talked about this. So we decided to do it because I put in so many hours of work to get this set ready, because obviously it's only two of us. So I had to pre-program the drums and pre-program all like the vocal effects and the weird like pitch shifting that was going to happen to my vocals as I was singing and things. And it was the day of, and I was like, I can't do this. Like, at the time I was probably 36 or something, 35. I'm a mid-30s man. I can't just go into the park in Edinburgh as people are coming home on a Monday evening from work and play this weird music to them that they didn't ask for. And as I was thinking about it, I was like, all right, there's two worlds. There's the world where I do this and the world where I don't do this. And I was like, I know what the world where I don't do this is, because that's just the world I've lived in for 35 years or whatever it was. But the world where I do this, I don't know what that world is like, but I really want to find out. And that really, I've said that to myself over the past few years since then. Anytime I've done something really scary, and it's always helped me get through, because I'm like, what the worst that's going to happen? People are going to think I'm an idiot. But people are so in their heads all the time thinking about whether other people think they're an idiot, that would be like momentary. They'd be like, oh, that guy's an idiot. And then they'd be like, oh, I wonder if what I said at work today was made this person mad, or what they think of me or whatever. And you realize that people are just so consumed with what is in their own heads that, yeah, you can be an idiot, but it doesn't really matter. So anyway, so that one phrase has come back so many times over the last couple of years and all these scary things. And we ended up doing the show. I took a bookshelf that was in our rented flat, put the synthesizers on it. We ended up playing for a couple hours until the cops came and started shining lights on us. Like, what are these idiots doing? And during that show, somebody slipped me a piece of paper, and I was in the middle of singing, so I just put it in my pocket. But I took it back home, and it was an email address. And I emailed the guy, and he's like, "Hey, I source talent for the Kelburn Garden Party, which is a festival on the west coast of Scotland." And he's like, "Loved what you guys are doing. If you guys want to play in July at that festival, let me know." And I was like, that was 1 hour of putting myself out there.
You just flipped to
And we
the
got a
other world. It's a parallel world. You've never been in it. You just flipped to it.
It was crazy. It was ridiculous. And yeah, I was like, that's 1 hour I was in the park putting myself out there. And yet there we got a festival gig out of it when we weren't even really a band, because we'd had nothing. We had no songs or anything. And that was a turning point. And it was just like, all right, nothing, especially when you're post 5, like nothing matters. Like, I don't have a boss that's going to see a YouTube video of me in the park with my brother playing synth songs, and nothing matters. Like, this whole life thing is meant to just be a fun journey, and like doing crazy things like that really help make it more fun and exciting. But you're right. As an introvert, it's sometimes crippling, and the more you do it, the more you learn to keep doing it. And that's something that I'm really thankful that the Mad Fientist did, is showed me that, just publish, just do it, do the best you can to make it as good as you can, but then just get it out there and move on to the next thing. And even if it flops, or if people hate it or you hate it, there's always something new, and people are going to focus on the new thing rather than that old thing anyway. So,
Brendan, I love that. That's really how I'm phrasing it in my own head. Is like these little moments of courage, right? Like you have these little moments of courage where you are on that balancing point between those two worlds, right? Where it's so easy to just do nothing, right? To say, oh, no, I can't do that. Or, oh, I'm going to be embarrassed, or whatever. It's going to fail. So I just take the safe route and just don't do anything. Or you can see what happens in that other world. And that's astonishing. And it brings to mind this quote from Scott Young, the author of Ultra Learning, that I know you really leaned on heavily for this entire project. And he said, your deepest moments of happiness don't come from doing easy things. They come from realizing your potential and overcoming your limiting beliefs about yourself. I mean, that's the whole trick, right?
Oh, I couldn't agree more. And yet the fact that I have an album that I'm comfortable enough to sell, that was my ultimate, because I was like, I know I won't put it out unless I'm happy with it. So to get to that stage, and I can't tell you how many times along the year that I've been really focused on making that thing, how many times that I thought, there's no way I can do this. I'd come across so many obstacles that I didn't think were surmountable, and yet somehow I always found a way. And I've never felt how powerful that is to do that. Now I feel like I really feel like, oh, I could do anything as long as I put in a lot of time and work, and it's the right type of work. I could do anything now, because that was the most difficult year and had so many seemingly insurmountable obstacles to overcome. And yet I was able to power through just by working on it for as long as I could every day and doing it day after day. So that was an absolutely huge lesson to learn.
And this is really where I want to spend some time with these last few minutes that we have with this show is talking about this idea of putting on your armor. Not my phrase. I was fortunate enough to get to hear several talks in a Greece Chautauqua, that is Jail Collins' event that he does each year. It's a fantastic event, and this particular talk was given by Alan, and also Bryson Christie from Millennial Revolution gave a version of it as well. And they were talking about this idea of putting on your armor and realizing that financial independence and the pursuit of financial independence allows you to start building that armor. And I think it's applicable for what we're talking about here. I think it's a really important just idea, and I'm going to drop a couple of them and get your feedback on it. As humans, we are born to create, not to consume. But yet we spend most of our lives 100% focused on consumption and never giving ourselves, always like putting it, well, next chapter down the road, one day maybe I'll create. By the time that we actually create or even start to, we usually give into the fear that it won't be good, it won't work out, that sort of thing. And there's all these other narratives that pop up along the way. Like if you're a creator, you're going to be a starving artist. And so I don't want to create anything. Or if I try something, I'm going to be bad at it and I don't want to fail. All these micro narratives pop up and they prevent us from ever trying it while missing the fact that failure is good. You've got to be bad at something before you're good at it. It's okay to fail and to fail forward. And you don't have to be a starving artist, especially if you can figure out how to optimize for this equation. And so I'd love for you to look at what you did through the lens of putting on your armor, and how working towards financial independence allowed you to do this. And if you were starting over, what lessons you might take into this journey if you were repeating it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, Phi definitely helped me have armor. Just like I said a little bit earlier, like having nobody to answer to and no worries that some future boss is going to stumble upon some stupid video of me and my brother in the park singing about something that has swear words in it or something. That obviously helps, and it insulates you from the normal worries of day-to-day life that a lot of people have to deal with, like putting food on the table and making sure that you're having enough saved so in case something bad happens and those sorts of things. So yeah, Phi itself, even if you're not fully Phi, you're building armor as you're approaching Phi and as you're saving for Phi. And that is very, very helpful. Part of my armor that I use in I guess everything that I do to create is I sort of have an alter ego. So the Mad Fientist is my alter ego in the financial space. And then if you see pictures from my other project, you'll see that I have lots of crazy, like blacklight makeup and stuff on for the park show, which people that pre-ordered the album can get a little video of that park show, which if you are interested. But it's having an alter ego for that too. So I have a whole separate outfit and, glasses that help cover my face as I keep, coming to try to hide behind this microphone.
You picked a huge microphone for a reason. I see that now.
Yeah, exactly. So that helps build the armor as well. If you aren't comfortable like me as an introvert putting yourself out there, then you can just start putting yourself out there as a different name or as a character. But yeah, as you mentioned, Phi really helps with that because it takes away a lot of the other worries that you could have that could get in the way of pursuing that. And it allows you to be a bit more brave and adventurous, I would say.
Brandon, you said before that you have this whole new mindset where you can do anything, right? And you also said doing the right type of work. And that just, my interest peaked immediately there. Like, because a lot of us have these plans, right? Like we want to master something. And maybe you give it a try for a little bit and for whatever reason, it gets put away, right? Or you quote unquote fail and you don't think you can do it. You're not good enough, whatever limiting belief you have, right? Just insert X limiting belief. But that right type of work, I'd love to hear what that means to you and how you think that's applicable to other people who might be looking to take on some insurmountable issue in their own head, right?
Yeah, no. So this all came about through that ultra learning experiment. So you mentioned Scott Young. He has a book called Ultra Learning. And last year, I decided to do an experiment to see if that was finally the thing that would help me make some progress. Because before then, it's always the same thing. You're like, oh, I'm just one book away from becoming this person or I'm one blog post or one podcast away from learning the thing that all the pros know that I don't, and that's the only reason why I'm not successful in this endeavor. So the only difference between that and every other attempt at that was that the ultra learning experiment that I decided to do was a 3 month. I blocked everything else off. I did no Mad Fientist stuff. I did no traveling. Had no social engagements planned. We simply had 3 months before a big trip to the States, and I was like, all right, I'm going to dedicate this 3 months to this ultra learning experiment. And so the thing that Scott says in his book is you have to be doing the right things. And one of the ways he describes that is through directness. So to be direct is to do the thing that you want to do. So a lot of the time before that, I'm trying to get better at this music stuff. So I'm watching this YouTube video on mastering, and I'm learning how to mix drums properly with this other book and all this sort of stuff. And he says, like, if you want to write songs, the thing that you need to be doing most is writing songs. And yes, YouTube videos are going to come in handy when you get stuck doing something and you're like, oh, I don't know how to actually do this, or what's the best type of reverb for this sound. Or a book's going to be useful for learning a new technique. But really, most of your time needs to be doing the direct thing, which is the thing that you want to do. So in my case, it was writing songs. So the reason that the ultra learning experiment was so beneficial for me was, one, it forced me to figure out what those important things were. So before I started, I created a spreadsheet where I had all the tasks that I thought were important. And then I rearranged the columns so that the most important ones were on the left. And then I simply tracked my time in each of those activities every day. And my only goal for the whole project was to average 25 hours a week doing music stuff. And yes, I had YouTube videos on the far right because sometimes you work and you have no confidence anymore, or you have no willpower anymore, and you just need to fill those 25 hours. Or if in my case, I was trying to do 5 days a week, 5 hours a day. So the most impactful part of that whole thing was that it just forced me to sit down in a chair and do it. And it made me focus and try to make each of my hours as impactful as I could by focusing on the right things. And that's really the only reason that I succeeded doing that than anything else I had done in my life. Because I came across, I should have learned this from the Mad Fientist, that none of your best ideas come from thin air. Like, you don't just wake up and be like, oh, I'm going to write this article today, or there's that melody, unless you're Paul McCartney and you do that once or twice. But your good ideas come from bad ideas or okay ideas that you build on. And it was the same with Mad Fientist. When I started Mad Fientist, I thought I was going to become this amazing investor. And I was going to come up with these incredible investing strategies to beat the market and all this sort of stuff. And then early in my research, I realized, oh, that's probably not a high likelihood of success. And by then I had already started the blog, and I was like, well, I need something to write about that now that I'm not going to write about investing strategies. So that's what ended up leading to like the tax minimization and tax avoidance stuff that ended up making the site famous and made it a success. And I would have never figured that out from nothing. It's only building on something else that I was able to lead to that. And it was the same for the music stuff. Like, the only reason I was able to write my first song is because my butt was in the chair for 5 hours a day, struggling, just brutal. It was awful. I hated every second of it. But on one of those days, I came up with something that ended up being the seed to a song. And then once I got one done, I was like, oh, maybe this could keep happening if I just keep sitting here. And the most incredible part of the whole journey was right at the end. I wanted one more song for the album, because an album's technically 7 songs, and I had 7. But I was like, I need one more just in case they change the rules before I release it, and then 7's not an album. And then back then I was still focused on that goal, whereas now, like, I realize the mastery of it is more important.
You always realize it after. I'm seeing the pattern.
Yeah.
You wait till you've met the goal, and then you're like, well, really, I probably should have just focused on the process.
Should have focused on this.
Yeah. I have a feeling next time you decide to do something, you'll get a goal, and then you'll realize after the fact.
I will, yeah. No, I don't learn. I'm not a quick learner, I guess. So yeah, but it was at this stage that I was like, all right, I want one more song, which is a goal. But then luckily I saw the benefits of the mastery part. So I had a month left before my self-imposed deadline. And I was like, I have a month to write this last song, which that would have been a crippling idea a year earlier. I would have melted down. My brain couldn't have handled it. I would have just procrastinated for 29 days and then freaked out on the last day and then not made a song because whatever I came up with in that one day was awful. But instead, learning from that past year of experience of like, whoa, if I just focus on putting in the hours, then a song may or may not come out of it, but the more hours I put in, the higher likelihood there's a song going to come out of it. And that's exactly what I did. I just sat, did my normal routine, and put as many hours as I could. And thankfully, near the end of the month, something happened, and I was like, "Oh, that sounds cool." And then I built on that for the rest of the month, and I actually got the final song done, which is the last song on the album as well, which is great. It's a good closing song. So it was a huge realization, like, okay, this works. I just focus on the hours and the effort, and then hopefully the byproduct is what I want. But there's no controlling the byproduct anyway, so I just focus on that thing.
Brandon, I love this concept of just putting in the hours and doing it and not just getting crippled by that inaction or whatever else is in your head that stops you from doing it. And believe me, that happens to me all the time. So this really hits home. And I'm curious, actually, just going back to the beginning of the project, for someone who's looking to do something like this in their own life. So clearly there's a balancing act between the doing, which as we've discussed is so critical, but also learning, right? Like you mentioned YouTube, and I think a lot of people think, oh, I'm just going to go on YouTube and waste time. But clearly there's a ton to learn on YouTube. And for someone who's sitting down at a synthesizer and say, what the heck do I do? Right? Like, I don't know how to do this aspect. Like, how did actually learning, like, how did you build an intentional learning into this process?
Yeah. So it was so hard looking back on it because I didn't even know what I didn't know or didn't know what I needed to know, didn't know where to start, didn't know anything. Like it was so, and that's why it was so disheartening and why it was so easy to quit that every other year of my life prior to last year. So at first it was sitting down, and this is actually probably useful for many different things, but copying what you love. So there's a band I love called Sonic Youth, and they're like a noise guitar rock. But the music I wanted to make was like more dancey, synthesizer based, up tempo, like something you could dance to. And I was like, okay, I don't know what I'm doing, and I don't know how to start a song, let alone finish one. So I was like, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover a Sonic Youth song, but I'm going to try to do it in the style of the music that I want to write. And that was huge because one, instead of sitting there for 5 hours a day thinking this song sucks, I should just stop, this is awful, I always had the song there and I love the song. So I was like, okay, the song doesn't stink. It's that was a huge thing to not have to worry about. Like the song's great. So now I need to make it my own. And what does that mean? And how do I do that? So for last year, before I wrote my first song, most of the year was spent trying to write one cover song, stealing as much inspiration from the artist I wanted to be like, but then having it built on top of that initial song. So I think that's huge, is to realize that all the people you look up to, they're taking from all their influences as well. And there was a podcast that I'll send you a link to. I think it's Creative Pep Talk, but it's a specific episode. And it said, all creativity is your unique sum of influences. That's all you have. Your taste and your sum of influences is what makes you unique. So don't fight it. Like I remember years ago, I thought that I had to invent like a new scale to use that would make my music unique, or like new chords that just have these weird tones in them that aren't part of like normal Western tuning. And like, I thought that's what it needed to be unique. But had I done that, it would have been the most awful music ever, because our ears are tuned to Western tuning and these chord progressions are common, and they're common because people love them because they're common. So anyway, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Your unique set of influences is enough to make what you do unique, and what your interests are is unique in the world. So if you write about something to please yourself, like what the Mad Fientist is all just me pleasing myself, like talking to the people I want to talk to and learning the things I want to learn. And so if you just make it for yourself, then it's obviously going to be unique because you're a unique person. And that was a big creative breakthrough. So building that cover song without the stress of worrying, is this song good or not, or is it terrible, allowed me to build those skills and see the sorts of structures of the music I loved, to then when I came time to make my own song, I was like, oh, the drums pick up here because you're leading into the chorus. So I need to, make the hi-hats faster. And that was actually one of the things on my spreadsheet, was when I ran out of all my willpower and all my confidence, I would just go and find my favorite songs, break them down, and figure out what key they were in, what's the BPM, how was it structured. I had all these drawings of how these songs were structured and the instruments that came in here and they disappeared here and why. So I just started using my influences as teachers. And again, like I said, I hit so many brick walls that I thought I would never get over. But then, yeah, things like YouTube come in handy there. It's like, this taught me how to do this, and this explained to me why this sounded bad when I couldn't figure it out. And I think it's using those tools when you need them, rather than just sitting on your couch for 5 hours watching videos and hoping that a song's going to magically appear at the end of it.
Yeah, I mean, if you can use those same 5 hours to be stumped on a myriad of questions and then find the answers to those, the best question leads you to 100 other questions, right? Which is why the quickest way to learn something is just to try and fail and then find out what were those stumbling blocks and then go get those answers. I mean, that, like, in everything that I've accomplished in my own life, that has been the process. And there are no new ideas under the sun. There's not a single new idea under the sun. It's not your responsibility to create a new idea under the sun. It's to steal like an artist and find out what your version of this will end up being. And to do that, you just have to literally just have to try and create some space. This is the biggest thing for people, is that we get so caught up in barely making it by, figuring out how to make the minimum payments, figuring out how to have all the stuff. We never give ourselves the space to try and fail and then, pursue that. And that's incredibly gratifying.
Yeah, and Jonathan, this kind of reminds me of the talent stack, right? Which is what we've talked about for years on this podcast, and what Brandon alluded to, with having these diverse set of skills, this diverse set of influences. Brandon, in your case, right? Like, you may have been the only person in the world who has all of these various influences, right? Because those are your favorite bands. And like you said, instead of having to reinvent the wheel, instead of having to come up with like random chord progressions that didn't exist, right? Like, in order to make an album, right? You just said, okay, what if I try to look at these influences that I have and come up with something that plays off of this variety, right? And I think that's really important for people to not get caught up in, you need to create something earth changing, right? Like, think about all of us here actually on this call looked at our own talent stacks and have augmented them and have relied on them, right? Like mine, I've talked about many times on the podcast. Like, I was one of the few CPAs and travel rewards website owners. And I wound up putting those bizarrely diverse skills into creating a free travel rewards coaching service 6 years ago that then, oddly, Brennan, as you know, led us to this day, which was me appearing on your podcast, then Jonathan hearing me and realizing that I lived in Richmond, reaching out to me, and then we started Choose FI. Like, literally, that is the line of progression, right? I mean, isn't that crazy to think about? And Jonathan, you with your talent stack of all, you were a retail pharmacist.
Yeah, I was going to say, which did not exist when we met. The talent stack that we're talking about right now, that I'm like, yeah, did not exist when
No.
I heard you on Brandon's show. That's question and
It's
failure after
wild.
question. Yeah.
Isn't that amazing to think? And like,
And that makes it all the more impressive. Like, you heard me, you heard Brad on my show, and then you've built this show that far exceeds anything I've ever done with my podcast, and your listeners are just crazy high, and the quality is just amazing. And you built that from nothing, but you did, and you learned as you went. And like,
Brandon, the first question was like, how do I start a podcast? Like, that was probably one of the first, or maybe how do I start a blog? I think a lot of people have had that one. That's, let me tell you, that is the tip of a very big iceberg right there.
Yeah. But look at you now, and it's amazing. And like, I remember back at episode 17, I was like, whoa, these guys are great right off the bat. Like 17 episodes in for me was probably 3 years of time because I only do it once every like 2 months. And my skills were nowhere near what you were at episode 17. And that was maybe what, I don't know, a few months into it at that point. And yeah, it's, yeah. So just Choosify itself is just a testament to one, what you can accomplish when you do something you're interested in and passionate about and put yourself out there. So amazing.
Well, thank you. But yeah, it's really, I mean, honestly, it is a testament to the underlying truth that is stated in this episode. That you can learn anything. And the quickest way to learn it is not to go get a degree in something and for someone to give you permission, but to get started, to try and fail and then say, yes. How do I iterate that? Every good idea comes out of a bad idea or an okay idea or a very mediocre idea. You do not get it right the first time. But the fact that you were willing to try gives you the opportunity to receive feedback and to iterate into something amazing. And in Brad's case, Brad will actually tell you his final idea or several had nothing to do with the first couple 5 or 6 ideas. But it's still a truth that's embedded in this statement that because he did those, everyone became more likely, became more focused, and ultimately led him to multiples that have worked exceedingly well. There's an underlying truth there that is inherent in all of our stories. And that's what I want to leave people with today. So the final thing here is Brandon has released his album. He's proud of it. I am going to buy it today. We're going to set up a link. I think you can help me with the short code here. Should it be choosify.com/synth? SYNTH. How does it?
No, too hard to spell.
Too hard. Give
Album.
me
Album.
album. There we go.
Album. That's what it is on my site too. So
All right,
yeah.
I'm going to reserve that for you. I promise you, Choosify is never going to release our own album, so this will be so this will be it for the rest of the time. Choosify.com/album will redirect to Brandon's page, and I think it'd be pretty cool for you guys to check it out and leave him some feedback. Choosify.com/album, and it's $5, Brandon. Is that the sales price right now?
Yeah, $5. So yeah, and the crazy thing is, like, with the Mad Fientist audience being as big as it is, there's a really good possibility this weird synth album could get on the Billboard charts, because since nobody buys albums these days, it doesn't take that many to sell to get on the charts, which is insane. So yeah. So
if you've gotten value from Brandon's content, from the tax minimizations, if that saved you a few thousand or $10,000 over the years, let's get him on the charts, my friends. Let's all of us go buy a copy of this $5 album and let's get this man on the charts. How about that?
Thank you. Yeah. So I will keep everyone who pre-orders the album, I will keep posted on the progress. And yeah, it would just be absolutely insane to see that happen. So yeah, thank you in advance if you do that. And yeah, you'll get the video of the park show that I talked about, and actually the cover song that I talked about is also on the album because I really enjoyed it at the end of it. And yeah, all that stuff's on there. So yeah, thanks for having me on, guys, and for helping me promote this weird synthesizer album.
Excited to do it. Excited
That's
to listen
so
to
cool.
my first synthesizer album. Choosefi.com/album. I'll pick up my copy today. All right, my friends, I hope you got value from this episode. I hope you really take some time and focus on the core concepts here, that there is a relationship between your money, your time, and your happiness. And the key is not to be the winner at any one of them, but to find the balance, the harmony between the three, and find out what is it that you truly value. The fire is spreading, my friends. We'll see you next time as we continue to go down the road less traveled.